Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 143 of Let's Play on the Story Tinker. And we have Erin, who has been with us before, and we have a new co-host, Jenn. And I'll let Jenn introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jenn. I am 32. I live in Massachusetts, and I have a fiance and two fur babies, a dog and a cat. I also work with Erin, and she's roped me into all of this.
Go, Erin.
Woo!
I've gone down the slippery slope with her on this webtoon in the last month and a half.
Wait, you binged all of it in a month and a half?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm sure you actually binged it in less based on, I guess.
Well, I did Midnight Poppyland first and then this one.
Oh,
so it's like
all of that in a month and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the frantic text of, at least you didn't have to go through the hiatus.
Oh my gosh, hiatuses. I mean, bless the heart, but it's so hard.
Yeah. I definitely remember the jealousy on that.
Nice. Woohoo, well, welcome to the club. I'm so excited. Welcome to
Yeah.
Webtoons. It will change your life. I'm sure it already has. And yeah, welcome to the podcast. All right. So this episode is cool. It's all about Charles and Sam. So wait, maybe we should leave this to the end. Maybe for the bonus question, what's your ship? We'll do that. Because yeah. Okay. So if you're a Charles and Sam shipper, this is a great episode. So the intro is the last interaction that they had together when they're in the car, and she is assertive, touches his chest, and walks away. So again, this just clues us in. We're gonna have an episode on that. And take it away, Jenn.
All right. So we start off with, we see Lucy hanging up this sign and pressing the tape into the window for this blood drive. And then Samara walks in, and Lucy kind of looks surprised that she said anything. But she goes, "Flyers for a blood drive? Is it that time again already?" And then Lucy goes, "Yep, sure it is. Shame your dad is out of town. He always took us out to lunch afterward." And then in the next panel, we get Samara going, "I wouldn't worry, Lucy. I'm sure Charles will do the same. I'll talk to him about it." And I was like, that surprised me.
Yeah, me too. I felt like she had gotten so much more confidence already that she felt like in the position where she has that kind of emotional weight with Charles where he'll listen to her.
Yeah,
or she feels that way. We know she does, but
exactly. I'll talk to him. I'll make sure that something happens, whether it's going out, ordering in. I'll make sure something happens.
Yeah, it was just so confident and off the cuff. I was like, where did my little Samara go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's two things. It's her confidence in her relationship with with Charles, and then also I think there is an element to it that she's the daughter of the CEO, so I don't know if she ever exerted that before, through that power around, but since she's the daughter, she kind of has the ability to say, "Oh yeah, I will do this in my dad's stead," or make sure it gets done. But it's also a first for her that we've seen at least.
Yeah. And then she starts walking by Umed, and he goes, "Boy, howdy, Sam. Fancy meeting you here." And I just read that so sarcastically because it's you're at work. Obviously, you're going to see her.
Funny.
And her first response is, "My answer is still no to joining your Underwatch team." And then Umed says, "Oh, come on, Sam, give it a shot. At least meet the guys and see if you'll have fun. You were in the competitive circuit at once. You can't tell me you don't miss it." And she just chuckles and says, "Sorry, Umed, I lost that drive a long time ago." And I was like, good for you for sticking to your guns.
So yeah, it surprised me because the last time that he asked her, I thought that she declined to join mainly because Charles was there and she was embarrassed. And that wasn't ideal because obviously you shouldn't change yourself for the person. But I mean, unless you're changing a bad part of yourself. But here, like the fact that she says, no, I lost that competitive drive a long time ago, that and she's easy about it. She's easygoing. Like she's not perturbed. She's not in conflict. Like she's confident that this is what she wants. So I was reassured to know that, okay, this is truly a choice that she's making. And it's not about Charles and being embarrassed in front of him.
Yeah. And I mean, I also felt really like, good for you, because you're standing up for yourself. And with the amount of problems she has with confrontation, like this is borderline confrontation.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Umed's been trying, maybe not necessarily hounding her, but like there's clearly an indication that like he might have been like reaching out to her on a couple of occasions, like I really need this help. I mean, we know he talked to her at least once that we've seen, and I'm not a gamer. My husband is, and a lot of his friends are, and I'm like, I don't know as much about the competitive gaming scene, but like it's intense, and it's like if she doesn't have that need, that like intensity, like it's just not gonna jive for you anymore. And it's like if she lost that interest in it, then it's like it's not even gonna be fun for her if she wants to, even just for like a one-time thing.
And I think, I love what you're saying about like confrontation, because I'm also not a confrontational person. It's really, really hard for me to, I have like a lot of social confidence on the one hand, but I hate confrontation. I will like just say yes to anything pretty much, and rather than saying no. I mean, I try to work on it, but it's really hard. But maybe also the fact that she seems to have a very good relationship with Umed, so she isn't afraid of saying no to him.
Yeah. I mean, they're friends, so I mean, it does make sense that she'd have a little bit more confidence with him.
And I think because he's never really pressured her for anything, like he's never expected anything other than her being good at her job and knowing what she's good at, and he knows that her game is good, and he doesn't underestimate her. So for her to just tell him, you know what, thanks but no thanks, I gave it some thought, it's not for me anymore. He's been trying, a little bit of pressure because he just needs an extra body on his team, but like he's always been respectful of when she gives him an answer.
And she ends it with, but I'm flattered you want me to join your team. And he goes, let me know if you change your mind. And she just, yep, will do. And then we get this panel with just like a white orchid, and it says, yes sir, I do realize your time is important.
Also, it's like so Charles to have an orchid, because it's like fancy and finicky, if I know correctly, and like expensive, like
and
beautiful,
super easy to kill.
Oh my god, they're so easy to kill. I've never been able to get one to rebloom.
I had one that I managed to keep alive for 2 years. I got a second bloom and then it died.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, it's if it's indicative of Charles and his nature, I mean, crush him once and he's gone forever. We hope not, but we hope.
Well, and might it be a callback to the orchids from the beginning of the season?
Oh, nice. Yeah, I called the chapter Orchid Beads, so I should remember that.
Yeah, with their morning
Luscious
liaison after her Irish coffee.
Oh, well, it was before her Irish coffee. No, that one. Yeah, okay, sorry. I was thinking of the regular coffee she had in his house, but sorry.
Yes, I totally did not pick up on that. And
I think now I'm gonna reread Let's Play it at some point, and I'm gonna look out to see if he has orchids in the office before, and I just didn't notice.
I'm like, yeah, that's something. I didn't even think to look at the flora in the episodes.
Either.
Oh, wait,
and now we're all gonna reread all this.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna look up briefly what white orchids mean, because I know for purple hyacinth we keep looking up flower meanings because they're like prominent there. So let's see, white orchid meaning. Okay, sorry, I'm not typing properly because I don't have that one as well. But let's see. Purity, faith, humility, safety, elegance, innocence, beauty. Okay.
Yeah,
innocence, elegance, beauty.
Right?
Innocence and purity, right? I mean, like, his innocence is crushed, but maybe he's trying to keep a remembrance of it alive, but in his office, memory of what he once was, what he once had.
And elegance. I mean, Charles oozes that British charm.
Yes. I know, it doesn't seem in real life.
Yeah.
As many of us would. But.
Right. But in this next panel, all you see is Charles, and it's, as I explained, Mr. Young is on vacation right now. And no, I do not know when he will be returning. No, sir, it's not that he thinks I'm unimportant enough to tell me when he's returning. It's simply that his return date is still a variable. And you just see him getting frustrated. And I felt this so hard. This is a lot of years in customer service. And we've all had this customer.
Mm-hmm. Like the nerve. He tells him he's unimportant. Like, what? This is like the first time he just said no. Like, nasty.
It's like asking for someone's manager when you're talking to a manager.
Oh my God, I know.
Mm-hmm. And then the next panel is him going, no, sir, I am not talking down to you. That's just how my accent sounds. And you see him doing one of these. And the amount of times I have sat on the phone like this, just that expression is pure anyone who's ever had a bad customer.
I've worked with salespeople. My last job, I was in an internal facing role, but I interacted with the salespeople a lot. And a lot of times, like, especially early on in the pandemic, when we do calls, like I didn't have to have my video on. And before we even went like fully remote, like I never did my video calls and stuff on conference calls. And I can't tell you how many times I would sit there, with a hand on the bridge of my nose, covering my face. Like that's not a thing. You can't do that. That's the functionality for that is just not there.
Mm-hmm. And I also think it's hilarious that, Americans think that British people are condescending just because they're British, because Americans have a chip on their shoulder about British people being, or Europeans in general, being more sophisticated. But my husband is Dutch, and he's like, we think British people, like, he associates British people with like soccer goons who like tear up a town after they win a match. So like, he's like, they're not sophisticated, whatever. But he really does. That's not his true opinion. That's just prejudice. But so Americans have this notion of British people. So
that they sound hoity-toity.
Yeah. They just talk that way because they were born talking that way. Like,
Exactly.
You can't help what accent you end up with. You really can't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could work on it, but why would you? Like,
Right? Half the world thinks the British accent is one of the best. So let's not fix something that's not broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
definitely this plus for me.
This next part, I was like, really? And he goes, no, there's not an American available to speak to you right now.
Oh my God. I was like, I couldn't believe that somebody would ask that. I mean, like I'm assuming that he's talking to some kind of like CEO or like somebody in like an upper echelon of this company if they're trying to talk to Mr. Young directly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like to ask, is there an American I can speak with? Like, my dude, that's not going to change the answer that Mr. Young is not in the office and nobody knows when he's coming home.
Right?
It's so obnoxious. And it's also obviously like showing this like American favoritism, like as if an American is going to get you what you want. Like,
mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. And as if like Americans are the only ones that have power in this company.
And then it just continues and it's devolving. And it's, of course, your business is important to us, which is why I am happy to help you with your concerns.
Oh,
yes, sir. I am qualified to handle. And he just stops. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, oh, and he just cut him off. Mm-hmm. Because you know that's what he's doing on the other end of the phone.
Yep.
I mean, I worked in retail. I worked at a Lowe's for years and years and years.
Oh my gosh, so did I.
Yeah, I did the customer service desk too.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of times I would get like, I would try to help somebody and they would just cut me off mid-sentence. I was like, but I know how to do this.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Perfect. It's very well encapsulated.
yeah. And then, I mean, you see Samara in the doorway as he's saying this. She's not, it looks like she's like thinking about knocking, but is like, maybe not interrupt this.
Yeah, I can see her on the phone. Should I come back?
You busy? But he waves her in and he says, I understand that you usually speak directly to Mr. Young when you call, but as I said, he is on vacation right now. And then the next panel we have, no, sir, I will not give you his cell number. I suspect that if you two were good friends like you claim, he would already have given it to you.
Burn.
I can't believe I'm like, it doesn't surprise me that somebody's asking for that. My husband has said a couple times that he worked in a customer sales facing position for a while, and he worked with a lot of customers that would call looking for their specific like sales rep. Like his coworkers would go to these client sites and deal directly with them. But if they were out on the road, they, the customers would call the main hub and be like, hey, can I talk to Carlos or can I talk to Sam? And my husband would be like, they're on the road right now. Oh, what's their cell phone number? Can I just call them? And he's like, I cannot give you their cell phone number. That's their personal phone. No.
Which was why I was wondering, why is Charles getting this call on his phone?
I mean, that could just be that his office phone is forwarded to his cell phone. Like, because I can't tell if this is right after they got in for the morning. I think it's actually later in the day. I think we get that later on in the episode. But like, I mean, if he just knows he's not always going to be at his desk, that way he can always get the call.
And you really can do that with those office phones, because like there's been times when we've closed the studio for the day and because of like a weather event or something, and I end up with everything redirected to my phone at home because none of us can get out of our driveway. So you can redirect it without having it actually like giving out your phone number. So that might be what he's doing here.
Okay. It was obviously an opportunity for us to see the pink phone and enjoy it.
Right.
I love that. Like, did he not just get a case for it? Like, you can basically change your phone color by just getting a new case.
Right.
Like, that's a ballsy move. That's a ballsy move to just walk around with your phone not in a case in general.
Well, didn't
maybe
he
it was
get
a
it?
case that was ordered.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That I can believe.
I appreciate that he's confident enough to just walk around with a pink phone. Other men might be like have fragile senses of identity and think that if they have a pink phone, somehow that undermines their personality, which I think is nonsense, obviously. So I'm glad that Charles doesn't care. Good for him.
Yeah.
But, as this conversation goes, you see Samara getting closer. And next thing you see is, sir, there is no reason to resort to name calling.
Oh. What did he just call him?
Right?
It wasn't Bunty, that's for sure.
No. Oh. All I could picture in my head was somebody like starting to like scream and yell, like,
oh yeah,
you mother effing piece of.
And then you get, no, I am not trying to be difficult, Mr. Kingslake. Like, he's really not being difficult. This is just somebody who's throwing a tantrum because he's not getting his way.
Oh yeah, like Charles is being like the utmost of customer service. Like, he's answering all the questions. He's not raising his voice at all. He's being so polite and so trying to be respectful. But yeah, this guy is just devolving on the phone.
He really is.
Turning into a big fat baby, like you said.
And this next panel is one of my favorites in this episode because the look that Samara is giving him in this is just so like sweet. My heart melted a little because you can see the brow furrow and the little sweat drop, and like it really looks like super tender and caring, and like, oh, I can't believe somebody's putting you through this.
I think she's trying to figure out, like, she wants to help, but she's not quite sure how to help yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
right. And then you hear him say, "My name, it's Charles Jones." And then we come back to Charles, and you can see him just like, that look is like, that look of, are you finally going to stop? And it says, "Well, sir, if you feel it's appropriate to make a complaint against me, then that is certainly your prerogative." And it's, yes,
the final threat that they use. And they think, as if they don't know that your managers know these customers and know you, and who are they going to trust? A whiny customer or you? Like, if you have a good relationship with them,
right? But that look is very like, is this over yet? To me. And then oh, sorry, Erin.
My husband used to be like, "Oh, you want to make a complaint? Here's the number for corporate. Do you have a pen to write it down?"
It really is. But then the next panel, all of a sudden, all you see is lift and a look of like, what is going on from Charles.
And I think, Erin, you were doing part 2, right?
Yep. So
yes.
She just takes the phone right out of his hand. "Mr. Kingslake, yes, this is Samara Young, as in Samuel Young's daughter, Samara Young." And then we get the chibi faces. "Yes, the miracle baby."
I felt such exasperation in that panel.
Like, that's the only thing that you're known as. Like, she's clearly been working for the company for a while, and that's what she's known as to the customers.
Well, I wonder if he must have some kind of relationship with the dad. I mean, I don't know, maybe, because I guess maybe when I hear miracle baby, I assume that it is someone who's close to the dad, but it could be that maybe it could be everyone knows about it, because right, he doesn't have a cell phone number, so maybe not that close.
I mean, it also could just be like a longtime client. So if he's been a client of the company for 25 years, then he was, they were there when Sam was born, so I'm sure that, and clearly Mr. Young would have taken a ton of time off to be home with them when that all happened.
Mr. Young also seems like the type of person to, like, when making small talk like brag about his miracle baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tell everybody, come to the office in tears and cry and tell everyone
every accomplishment she's ever had in her life.
Right.
So to me also, like, the fact that he said that was kind of deprofessionalizing. It was reducing her to being like a baby, like literally, rather than a person who was speaking to him and was trying to censure him or talk straight to him. So it was like, I mean, we already know the guy is disrespectful, but this just confirms that.
Yeah, she's trying to work in a professional capacity, and he's, like you said, infantilizing her. So she just continues on. Anyway, I know for certain that my father would be appalled to hear one of his clients speaking down to his appointed locum. And then she slams down the coffee mug that she brought in for Charles, and rudely speaking to the person he put in charge for his absence, would be questioning his ability to lead.
Nice.
That slam, I got a little excited because she's like, I'm like, she's in her defender mode.
Like, I love that she's just reading him the riot act. She is not having any of his crap. We can't tell if she heard anything through the phone, because you know how sometimes you can hear the other person on the other line, especially if they're being very loud. But she's just like, nope.
I don't. She's probably this, but
she's probably not even giving him a moment to try to get a word in edgewise. If he's trying, she's speaking right over him. She's not having it, and I love it.
Yeah, it's like she goes from being like her for herself, she's shy, but like one of the things Charles said about her, I love how you defend your friends and you stand up for them. And for her friends, she loses that fear of confrontation, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And shows us how much she loves Charles.
Yes.
So, she gets this very serious face. She's leaning over, like she's leaning onto the desk, onto the coffee mug. Yes, I know exactly who you are. You're the type of client my father warned me to avoid.
Oh, man. Okay, so I have a funny story about this. So my husband, who does not care a whit about people's like fame or money or title or anything, like to him, everyone's the same. When he was a teenager in Holland, he was in a theater and he stepped on someone's foot by mistake, obviously. And the guy was like, "Do you know who I am?" And it was, who was it?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
So when you were a teenager, you stepped on someone's foot in Holland. Who was it?
He don't Kona. No one knows them. It's a Dutch celebrity.
Dutch celebrity. What did he do?
He is a famous novelist.
Famous novelist. So you stepped on his foot and you're like, "Do you know who I am?" What'd you say?
I shocked him. I don't know. I wasn't sure. I'm not paying attention.
Anyway, he's like, "I don't care," basically. And now we know that this particular Dutch novelist is a snob, as is this person. Thinks that they can get away with being holes because they're rich or whatever.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Jen.
I feel like anyone who uses the phrase, "Do you know who I am?" is like, I'm immediately just like, "Do you know who I am?" Because like, I have no clue.
I was going to say the same thing. Anytime somebody uses the "do you know who I am?" It's like, do you think I care enough to know who you are?
Mm-hmm. If someone says that, instead of my respect going up, my respect would go down. Like, yeah, now I know who you are, pompous jerk. Like,
So Samara is still going. And if anyone is going to be issuing a complaint about behavior, it will be by me for when my father returns. And she's just like you said, like I said, she's leaning into this conversation, and Charles is scare roused.
With that little blush.
That little blush, like clearly he enjoys a bit of a dominant woman from time to time.
Yes. Oh, it is. It's great. I totally relate. Like when you see someone in their element and with internal power and strength, it's very inspiring.
My fiance has actually told me before that one of the things that he likes about me is I will tell the waiter when his food is not cooked right. And he's like, "It's scary, but you do it, so it's okay." I feel like that's kind of part of what's going on in his head.
It's scary, but I like it. She says, "And I'm sure he'll be happy to reconsider renewing any contract with you." So now she's threatening his business if he doesn't shape up his act.
Wow, she's tough. Where'd you get that from?
Right?
All it took was that touch on Charles's chest this morning, and she's got all the confidence going today.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna say, if that touch did that, imagine. Wow.
And then she said,
"That will be a new person."
Oh my God, right? Can't wait until we get there.
This is just going to devolve from here.
Oh yeah. So then she says, so clearly then she lets him get in a word, and she says, "Will I what?" And then she jumps back from the phone. Creep. And gingerly hold the phone out to Charles, like, "I don't know. Ew, take it back. I don't want to touch it anymore. Gross." "You can have your phone back now." He says, "Do I want to know what he said?" He asked if I wanted to be his fourth wife, and she's shivering now. And I mean, we know that she doesn't like confrontation. So this is that she was running on adrenaline defending Charles because she saw that he needed to be taken out of that conversation because it wasn't getting anywhere. So now she's coming down off that adrenaline high, and it just zapped everything from her.
Oh, and also the guy is disgusting. Like, what the hell is wrong with him?
Oh my God.
He doesn't even have social cues. Like, EO's daughter, you think Mr. Young is going to appreciate that comment? Like,
right?
He shot himself in the foot, dummy.
Right? Like we've gotten some creepy phone calls before, but it's like it's always like I feel I feel like she kind of felt dirty handing him back the phone.
Oh yeah.
Because that's how you feel when you hang up with somebody like that. And you kind of start to shiver, like, because you can feel all that emotion just like, oh, nope.
Oh yeah. So Charles he asked if I wanted to be his fourth wife. Charles responds, classy. Are you all right? And she says, yeah, I just need a second. And she's just shivering. And I'm like, and especially if you don't like confrontation, you've had to be in a confrontational situation, even when you know that you've got it under control, whether you're in the right, or you know that you're making a point that you need to make, you feel very strongly about it, it still like leaves you shaky afterwards. And like I could feel that tremble, like it's a full body tremble, and there's nothing you can do to stop it except let it run its course and get out of your system.
Yeah, and I guess it also just, she didn't completely change in character. She just, like you said, running on adrenaline. She's still who she is, but that also shows, how important it was to her. And, a line I think about a lot is that bravery is not the absence of fear, but it's persevering with the fear. So, if she was Monica, like this conversation wouldn't have been a big deal. But because she's Sam, it does show a lot about her feelings for Charles and her strength of character, and that it is taxing for her in the end.
Yeah. And then she says to Charles, sorry, I got upset with him, but I couldn't stand to see him talk down to you, especially since you've taken on more work while my dad is away. He says, it's all right, Miss Young. I've seen firsthand you come to the defense of your friends. I'm just glad I wasn't on the other end of the latest tongue lashing.
Oh.
Yeah. Here I'm going with the anyone though. I don't know, Charles. Maybe you do want to be on that other end, that different kind of tongue lashing.
But I mean, to be fair, the last time she yelled like this in front of him, it was at him.
Yeah. So he's experienced the tongue lashing firsthand, and I think he enjoyed watching it more than receiving it. And stay aroused. She says, this is part of what I hate about running a company, dealing with self-important blowhards who think they can say whatever they want. And he responds with, if it's any consolation, I think your father would have handled him much the same way. And he would probably be bursting with pride too, because that he would be so proud of her for being able to stand up to somebody in any capacity.
And then he would start crying. He'd say, my pudgy pie.
Not just that, but it would make him feel like she's taking an interest in his business, like, which is what he wants from her.
Which, I mean, he just hasn't let her have a chance to show the interest. Like, he's honestly babied her so much that, like, he's never given her an opportunity to step up and prove that she has an interest or can. Like, they've no one in the family except maybe her mom. We haven't seen a whole lot of interaction with her mother. Like, none of them have given her an opportunity to stand on her own two legs for almost anything, because they've always treated her as this frail little child. Also, I just realized, I'm like, I'm really proud of her for not needing to go for like a rescue inhaler. Like,
that's a good point.
She handled that, and she's like, because by the next panel after the mug trade off there, like, she's not shivering anymore. Like, she came down from it pretty quickly and is able to move on.
Good for her.
I think this is where I'm passing it off to you, Mindy, or
okay. So he tells her, don't forget your coffee, Miss Young. And she says, oh no, it's not for me. I bought it for you. I know it's late in the day, but I thought you might want a perk up. And she's like, oh, thank you very much. And he said, and cheers, and he sips it. And then he freezes because she has grabbed his hand, sorry. And I'm so sorry, I was such a pervert, but like, I'm sorry, the placement of the shot, the framing, like, it didn't have to be quite so wide and expanded.
Well,
sorry to anyone who's very young and reading this, but when you get older, you get a lot more open about like your sexuality. So.
And I actually didn't realize until the second time I read this that in where he freezes, he's also blushing. Like he is well aware of where that hand is.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I really do. I mean, like, all joking aside, like sexuality is a huge part of life. So I'm happy that I remember when, I grew up in a society that didn't talk about sex at all. Like, I learned about sex through like the internet and like books, like whatever, you know? And so, yeah, I think it's important to be open and honest. So I appreciate when the story talks about it.
Yeah.
So she grabs his hand, and again, which is her showing, you know, affection again, taking the lead like she did this morning. And she says, my dad doesn't always show you his appreciation. And she's blushing also. But I know he respects your skills and talents in your job. On his behalf, and we have another focus, and she's, you know, curling her little fingers around his and mine. Thank you for taking on additional responsibilities. He's still frozen. So my father can be with my mother right now. And he has the sweetest smile. He's so cute.
I think like he's thinking like she could do this. Like, I know she doesn't want to, but he's like, she is shaping up to be able she could step into the CEO position one day if she came around to it. And I think this was like that first glimpse of Samara Young, CEO of Young Enterprises or Industries or whatever the company is.
But I mean, he's also got to be feeling a little bit of pride that, you know, she's actually talking to him about this stuff, because when we first started, she wouldn't have said any of these things to him or dared to touch him. And he's like, in that look, I see that little bit of, you feel, you did it.
Yeah, the reaching out, initiating contact, prolonged contact. It's not like, I've touched you on the shoulder with a there, good job.
It's impressive. It's so cute.
Yes.
And he says, thank you, Miss Young. It's always nice to be appreciated. And now he, you know, he curls her, his arm, fingers around hers. And he says, it's a shame you don't want to take over your father's company when he retires. And then there's the caress. So I wasn't quite clear who's doing the caressing. Is it him or her?
I think it might be a mutual caress, because there's movement not only on his hand, it's mostly on his hand, but there's a little bit on her hand. Like, I think it's that thumb rub moment.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I took it too, is like he moved to take her hand and she's now rubbing her thumb over that pad part. Like, you know, you do when you really kind of, it's just that sweet little bit of like, yeah, I'm here.
I love this stuff.
It's
kind of little
it's
romantic
an intimacy.
gestures.
Yeah, it's an intimacy. Like, you don't hold hands and like do that movement with just anybody. You do that with somebody that it's a very intimate hand movement.
Yeah, I love these romantic like little touches more than I think, you know, even like big ones. I feel like, yeah, like you said, this is just like the sign of like sweet love. I love it. And he continues, because the more I see you grow, the more I find myself wanting to work under you. And he's like, for you. Oh my God.
And the worst part is, if he hadn't corrected himself, like working under a CEO, working under a manager, like it makes sense. And that's how you would potentially refer to that. It's not actually an innuendo if you don't make it one, and he made it one.
You can totally tell where his mind has gone since this touch. Straight down the gutter.
Oh, and the panic. He jumps. The panic in his face is like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said it. Oh my God.
And he just continues. He says, "You've grown a great deal, and it would be nice to see you on top." At the top. Goodness, you're so cute.
It's one of those times where you just can't get out of your own way. You hear it as you notice it as it's coming out of your mouth, and you're like, I can't take it back now. It lives out in the world, and I said what I said.
So I'm curious because Sam does not really react. Like she doesn't acknowledge that like, you know, he made all this these comments. So I wonder if like next episode or something, she'll like rewind this in her head and she'll be like, oh my God, he was totally into me. And like, she just didn't want to say anything. or if it went over her head. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty hard to go over her head. Okay.
I'm kind of hoping that we get a little bit, I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be a little bit of that like internal monologue panicking in the car ride home because we know that he's going to drive her home. But I'm hoping that today's confidence manifests in some maybe an invitation inside when he drops her home.
Yes. And then they'll maybe like forget about those lessons. We'll reschedule them right from her couch and things will just proceed. Maybe the bed.
Yeah. But this also like this shows that he's really comfortable with her right now. Because there are some people that you like always have the filter on for. And there are some people that you get to know them so well that you're like, you don't even think about the words that are coming out of your mouth as they go. And I've done this before at work.
Have you seen this, Erin?
It happens a lot in the break room. We can bust on each other pretty well, and we always try to make sure that the door is closed so that clients can't hear.
But we have one coworker who always calls me out because he's like, and it's always phrasing, like for years he's been yelling at me and I can't make it stop.
It's funny. And then he has this expression. He's like, I don't know how to pronounce this. Cocky gaff. Sorry, I don't know any Welsh, which means the cat's willy, which is interesting. Okay. I didn't know that was a Welsh phrase, but fine. And very relevant one too. Like,
I love those random colloquialisms that you get that like just don't translate to another language, but they've just caught on in the native tongue.
Yep. It's like, what is wrong with me? Am I having a stroke? Dude, like you're really that dense. You don't know what's wrong with you. You know what's wrong with you. Just ask us.
You're thinking with your cat's willy.
Yep. And, this whole episode was so funny. And she interlaces her fingers with his, which is also so sweet. Oh my gosh. And she's like, Charles, are you free this evening? So
and she's not exploding. I was so proud. The blushometer didn't show.
Like she's still got the blush, and I mean that could. I'm gonna guess that some of it is a carryover from the phone call and still coming down from that. She seems like somebody that doesn't lose a blush very easily, but you know, some of there's a couple extra new lines for the ask. But you know what? Like, good on her. She's taking the initiative. Like she is running with it.
But it also like that panel made me question like, did she actually understand the innuendo that Charles was just having?
I don't know.
I think she's starting to pick up what he's putting down. Like she's like, I think I'm on the same wavelength here.
Oh yeah.
And he says, just a few fencing lessons. Why do you ask? Why do you ask? Why do you ask? Of course, you know why she's asking. Like,
right?
Yeah, that one was dense.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I see. She stammers a little and stands up. I was just thinking we could spend the evening together. And as she's walking out, he's like, Miss Young, the lessons can be rescheduled. It's no trouble. And she's like, no, it's okay. We can take a rain check. Maybe next time, and I'll make you dinner. And she smiles. See you in a bit. For the lift home, he blushes and she closes the door. So I was like, why didn't you say yes, Sam? Like, what do you think?
I think she's starting to second guess herself and be like, well, I don't want to inconvenience him because, you know, I don't think she feels like she's worth rescheduling his entire lessons for and the rest of his day for. I don't think she's quite gotten there yet. I mean, she's more confident than she was, but I mean, at this point, I think she feels more like a bother than anything else.
Okay.
I was thinking, I mean, possibly because, I mean, especially where they're not really in a relationship yet. It was an invitation. It's not, I think this was a very spur of the moment thing. Like this isn't something that they were either planning for, or she just kind of was like, hey, I'm on a roll. Let's see if I can do this. I'll make the ask. And, you know, the fact that he already has plans, it's like, no. You've made plans. This is something that these people are anticipating. And it's like, I mean, I would hate for my instructor to be like, hey, sorry, I got to cancel for tonight. Can we reschedule for another day? Like, unless you're sick, we made a plan, we made a date, stick to your commitment. And it's like, I mean, you could also be like, hey, my lessons are over by, 8 p.m. Like, if they're over early enough, like, that's still plenty early to have dinner.
Right.
Maybe she doesn't cook, or, maybe she does cook and he comes over after his lesson and he just showers at her apartment. I don't know.
It may still happen. The night is young, or the weeks are not happened yet.
But I also love that, like, as soon as she starts to stand up with the, oh, I see, the immediate panic in his face of like, I did the wrong answer. Wait, can I change my answer? That was not my final answer.
And then I agree with you, Erin, that like, yeah, like it's not really responsible to like, if because I'm assuming it's the students, right, and not like his own personal lessons. But either way, yeah, it's true. Like, it's not really responsible. But like, I love how he's so into Sam that he would like. He's probably usually very like meticulous and like considerate. He probably doesn't do this like every time. But for her, he's like, it just like goes. He doesn't even question. He's like, I'll do it.
Plans? What plans? No plans. I don't have plans.
I'm a little mixed feelings on that, because as a manager, I'm like, don't make me reschedule people.
Yeah, I know.
They will be angry, but also at the same time, I'm like, but he likes her.
So by the way, when I was like, I met my husband when I was 20, and I did the same thing. But I went on a date with him, and I didn't want to go back. I was supposed to do, I don't know, I think I was in charge of like a room at my college/seminary. I had to unlock the door I had the key to a room where people would have their suitcases or something. And I was supposed to be there, and like I wasn't, or something like that. And then like people trying to open the room, and I was like, I'm currently like 4 hours away on a date. And I was like, I didn't want to go back. I had stayed late on the date, and I was like, and the person was mad at me. Somebody was like, who was trying to get in, was like mad at me. And I was like, sorry. But that was my 20-year-old self choosing romance over, responsibility, which I feel bad. I still feel bad for that, by the way. But, oh, well, you're only young and in love once.
It worked out in the end.
Right?
I mean, trust me, 15 years later, she's not there waiting for her suitcase. So like,
exactly. She eventually got her suitcase. You found the love of your life. Everybody wins.
Exactly. So she leaves, and Charles is like, he's the cutest little face, the chibi face. He's like, and he just has this baby face. Oh my gosh, he's like, he pouts and he's like, do fucking melatiti high. I don't know how to pronounce it, which is like, God effing damn it. Yeah, like curse word upon curse word. He's so upset. Oh my Lord, so cute.
I mean, but how many times have you done that? Like, either when you liked somebody or you were dating and you realize that you absolutely said the wrong thing, and as soon as they leave and you just internally are like, shit.
But it also makes me wonder, like, I want to know what's going through his head on why, with the reaction that she had, like, what conclusions is he jumping to right now on where she's going with it?
Well, I mean, she did tell him, like, I think if he's able to think about it like rationally, he'll realize she asked him out and she said, we'll do it again. So the ultimate end was like positive, but who knows what he's going to be thinking in his emotional state.
I can't wait for us to get her internal monologue or her thought process now that door is closed. Like, I do envision at least a little bit of her, like, probably not on the leaning back on the door, because you can hear when a door like gets pushed back on, but like the wall next to his door, just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah, she would totally do that.
She's having the same freak out that he is, but she's not pouting about it, she's panicking about it.
Yep. So also Charles is so oblivious. I'm like, man, if you think you're not falling for her, you are like really not self-aware.
Right?
He's so obsessed.
Oh, he's totally into it.
I think that's one of my favorite tropes in, like, whether it's comics or books, then when like a character is like, and then it's okay, I'll never see this person again. It's like, reader, and this is where they were so wrong. Like, I don't like them that way. Have you looked at the last 6 chapters and the way you've been interacting?
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me otherwise. I know.
Mm-hmm.
I see you.
Yeah, I see you. I see the way you're acting. I see the way they're acting too. They're into it.
Yep. Yeah, we have the benefit of being the readers and somewhat objective.
I love being an omniscient reader.
Right.
So, do you have anything to say about this episode before we do like a bonus question about endings? I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are.
I mean, the one thing I will say is, like, the minute like that I found out like this was the episode, because Erin was like, "You're doing this with me this morning, right?" And the minute I found out it was this episode, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I made that noise that a lot of girls make when they just like I scared my cat a little there.
Nice.
I definitely got once the episode went live, I got the text, and we both read it, and I got the text, it's a Charles and Sam episode.
Happy dance. Yeah, it's good. Awesome. Okay, so let's do pause this recording and do the bonus question.
Yes.